Throughout the world, people go to extremes. There's amazing ingenuity and some stuff that's mind-bogglingly dangerous. Some people push the limits because they have to. Others because they choose to. In this episode of the world's most extreme, life at nature's front line.
Somehow, nature still has ways of surprising us and wowing us and making us feel modest and humble in its presence.
Nature can be bountiful and merciless. It gives and it takes.
It takes you back to a world where you could imagine 1,000 years ago when nature just ruled.
These are the world's 10 most extreme. A 30-meter high monster. Most people would run from it. But for a few, it's a dangerous attraction.
I just realised, like, in an instant, I was like, okay, like, this isn't going to do what I thought it was going to do. And then all of a sudden, I just had this almighty impact. I was like, oh, you've blown it. Nazaré, Portugal, it has the biggest waves in the world and the most dangerous.
A popular resort town on the Portuguese coast, Nazaré is transformed between October and March into a mecca for big wave surfers. The record for the highest wave ever surfed has been broken here at least 3 times.
When you're there in Nazaré on the cliff, the waves almost break in slow motion, and you can feel like the ground move, you know. The power from the ocean is just insane.
How these 10-story titans arrive at Nazaré is a unique combination of factors, starting with the distance they travel.
So in order for these huge waves to develop, we need something called swell to start to develop in the oceans. And swell will happen when you get a consistent wind speed across a large area, and it forms these large-scale waves that tend to build. And they travel thousands of kilometers across the oceans. So for this particular location, you've not only got the swell that can build and develop across the Atlantic towards Portugal, you've got below the surface the Nazaré Canyon.
The undersea canyon is believed to be the largest in Europe. 130 miles long, it sinks to 3 miles deep, but rises dramatically to 30 meters as it reaches Nazaré, just half a mile off the coast. This shape is critical. Waves, which have already grown during their journey across the Atlantic, are funneled through this rising V-shaped canyon and forced into supersized giants before breaking in the abrupt shallows. They're so powerful that surfers need jet skis to tow them into position and rescue them if they get into trouble. To ride a 10-story wave, there's no margin for error.
These waves have a huge amount of energy, because if you think about every single cubic meter of water has a weight of 1 ton, that could really do you some damage.
A single wave can deliver a devastating amount of force.
The reality is that a wrong move or a mistake could be fatal.
It's the 8th of November 2017. Brazilian surfer Rodrigo Coxa has broken the record on a 24.4-metre giant. Now British big wave surfer Andrew Cotton is towed into position.
I was towing with Garrett McNamara. Garrett put me in perfectly. It was all lining up. It was like really smooth, really beautiful wave, and I was like, oh yeah, this is great. Like, this is like the best wave of my life. I just realised, like, in an instant, I was like, okay, like, this isn't going to do what I thought it was going to do.
Andrew was caught in the wrong part of the wave.
I was in such a bad spot that I just jumped off the board.
But he jumped into the path of a monster wave.
And then all of a sudden, I just had this almighty impact from like my bum through my back. And I can remember like coming up and I was in severe pain through my back.
The impact from the wave had fractured Andrew's spine. He needed to get out of the water fast.
The rescues are always quite critical because obviously there's not much distance between the waves, so there's not much time. And there just wasn't enough time. The time I got on and the time he started to accelerate, and just got smashed.
Andrew was separated from his rescuer as Nazaré's powerful surf pounded his broken back. But finally, washes him to safety. Andrew's spinal fracture could have been far worse.
The good news was it was quite stable, so it meant that there's no chips or anything in my spinal cord or anything like that, so it's quite a safe, stable fracture.
You'd think Andrew would be done with big wave surfing.
Without a doubt, I'm going to head down to Portugal and spend a lot of time in Nazaré, and I hope to ride, you know, the biggest waves again.
Turbocharged by Nazaré's unique 3 miles deep canyon, these waves will continue to break more than just records. From monster waves at sea to monster waves on land. Nighttime in Arizona. Except it's not. It's the middle of the day. And this is a vast cloud of dust. It's not just unpleasant, it can cause millions of dollars of damage and serious illness. But the simple solution might be this. Every summer in America's dry southwest, huge walls of dust race across the landscape. They can span more than 50 miles and reach 1,500 meters high.
These giant dust storms occur in very arid parts of the world, but also need a large storm to develop. And it's within that storm that you get extreme downdrafts, so channels of air that come high from the cloud down to the ground level. The ground's very dry, it's very arid, there's lots of dust, and these downdrafts pick up that dust and readily take a wall of dust out for hundreds of miles. They can move at great speed, up to 50, 60 miles per hour, so can arrive across towns and cities without any warning whatsoever.
This is a natural phenomenon, but it also reflects the impact of man. In a lot of areas where we see these kinds of dust storms, people have brought in livestock, goats, sheep, cattle. They've overgrazed grassy areas and turned areas into something closer to desert, where there's a lot of open areas where the soil, the dust, the sand is available to be scoured up by the wind.
In the 1930s, overgrazing triggered what became known as the Dust Bowl, a series of storms that ravaged the southern plains. On Sunday, April the 14th, 1935, a 1,000-mile-long dust storm swept across Oklahoma and Texas, turning the sky black for hours. Known as Black Sunday, it was the Dust Bowl's worst catastrophe. During the storms, people and livestock were killed and crops destroyed. It triggered mass migration from the Midwest to California. After Black Sunday, the federal government took action. They planted grasslands. Grass roots help bind soil together, preventing it from being whipped up by strong winds. So the best defense against the dust storms could be to turn back time and make the arid plains green again. This is the land of death, the hottest place on Earth. It sits within Ethiopia's Danakil Depression, in East Africa's Rift Valley, where the Earth is literally being ripped apart by 3 tectonic plates, causing the land to sink to 100 meters below sea level. The terrain here is so unstable, it's been said that even camels have been sucked into it. And at its deepest point is Dalol, one of the lowest places on Earth. It's a volcanic cauldron of sulfur, burning salt, and acid.
Dalol is the hottest place on Earth by its average temperature. About 35 degrees centigrade is the average throughout the whole year. In the hottest time, the average in the hottest month is about 45, 46 degrees centigrade. This place is consistently hot.
Why temperatures remain so high here day and night throughout the year is partly because of how low the land lies.
It's below sea level for a start, and as you go down below sea level, you increase temperature. Just like as you go up a mountain, it gets cooler. You also have the fact that the place is within the tropics. It's in the hottest part of the planet where you get the most sunlight.
It's also an active volcanic area with thermal vaults bringing heat from below as well. So it gets heat from all directions.
Whilst Dalol can get as little as 10 centimetres of rainfall a year, about as dry as the Sahara, it does still have puddles. Just not ones you want to jump in.
You get this very, very strange interaction between the magma and the salt that give you these weird yellow and orange colours. You get acidic pools, you get a bizarre kind of Martian landscape developing.
These pools can have a pH of 0.2, acidic enough to dissolve metal and bone. They give off a cocktail of chlorine and sulfur gases so toxic, it can kill animal life. But even this land of death yields life. It was in this region that archaeologists found fossil evidence of some of our earliest human ancestors. And today, the nomadic Afar tribe mine white gold. They extract thousands of tons of salt every year from evaporating lakes, fed by underground streams. It can be several days' arduous journey, transporting the salt slabs to market 50 miles away. Despite Danakil's relentless hostility, life survives. But there are places where nature is so generous that life teems in unimaginable numbers. Every year along the east coast of South Africa, a vast shoal of sardines migrates. It's up to 30 meters deep, a mile wide, and 4 miles long. The Sardine Run is one of the biggest wildlife migrations on the planet. And one of nature's great mysteries. The journey starts at spawning grounds off the southern tip of South Africa. Between May and July, as many as 400 million sardines then move north along the KwaZulu-Natal coast towards Mozambique.
Essentially what happens is, due to the currents and the unique currents in southern Africa, there gets this very cold finger of current up through the Western Cape, through the Eastern Cape up into Natal where we are, and shoals of sardine follow this and they concentrate at unprecedented levels.
After decades of study, scientists still aren't sure why the sardines make this journey.
There's a number of hypotheses why it happens. One, it might be a feeding migration. The current thinking is that it's probably a spawning migration.
Whether it's for eating or mating, the sardines take a huge risk, running a gauntlet of predators, which corral them into swirling balls, making them easier to pick off. And if the sharks don't get them, these guys might. The sardines often run so close to the beach, they can be caught in less than a metre of water. Whilst all along the KwaZulu-Natal coast, fishing boats plunder the shoal offshore. The Sardine Run has spawned industries that can be worth as much as £25 million in a good season. Much of the catch goes to market. But there's also a drive-through option.
Every year for the last 30 years, I've been selling on that exact same spot. We sell them anywhere between 10 rand a dozen to 50 rand a dozen.
But this is only when they run. Sardines are a boom or bust business. Unpredictable conditions mean they don't always run, and even when they do, strong winds can prevent the fishermen from getting out to them. Worse still, sardine numbers seem to be dropping, possibly because of overfishing by commercial vessels much further down the coast.
The Sardine Run is characteristically very variable. There can be absolutely no catch at all for 2-3 years in a row. So the fishermen can't survive in it, but it is important to their local economy.
It's such a huge spectacle that it's generated another industry. People come from all over the world to witness 30,000 tons of fish on the move.
We've got a break in the weather, it's nice weather out there. So we're basically going to launch, head out and look for the shoals. Once we see that, time to jump in the water and get diving.
Marine biologist Ryan Johnson works for one of a number of diving and filming operations that follow the shoal.
See the ripples all on the water over there. It's always a good sign when you're straight out of the harbour and you see some action. Often if you want to hop in the water and you want to film this or you want to see this, you're going to have to get in the water, which is in less than ideal visibility. And when you do that and you've got 40, 50 sharks around you, it's hair-raising.
When the sardines are running, it's good business for the fishing and diving operations.
I've never had anything that can match being able to witness a shoal of bait right in front of you getting attacked by dolphins, sharks, gannets, whales. It's the pinnacle of underwater experience.
For 3 months, the Sardine Run is the lifeblood of the community. But it's unpredictable, under threat, and little understood. and it might not be around forever. The deepest snowfall ever recorded wasn't in the Arctic or Antarctica, but Japan. In winter, roads like this in the Japanese mountains can be buried up to 20 meters deep. But incredibly, that doesn't stop people using them. Winding through the northern Japanese Alps, the Tateyama-Kurobe Alpine route climbs from the coast to Morodo Station at 2,500 meters. The road is known as the roof of Japan, but come winter, it disappears.
This part of Japan can get a lot of snowfall during the winter season. You get very cold Siberian air coming down from the northwest. It crosses the Sea of Japan, picks up moisture, and then buffers against the mountains. You get heavy snowfall.
Japan's Alps can receive nearly 40 meters of snowfall over a winter, making the Alpine route impassable and invisible. But not for long. This road now slices through a layer of snow nearly 6 stories high for over 8 miles. Instead of being a road to the roof of Japan, it becomes a destination in itself, the Snow Canyon. If you can get there.
When you look at pictures of the tour buses going through this gap in the snow, it's hard to imagine how they ever cleared it in the first place. Turns out they do it gradually. They wait till spring, then they come up with bulldozers, and they scrape away at the snowpack until they've carved out this huge trench through the pass.
And how do you find a road buried under a 20-meter snowdrift? The team of bulldozers are equipped with GPS and satellite phones that work in tandem to give the drivers an image of their location in relation to the snow-buried road. It's now become one of Japan's top tourist traps. Let's just hope there isn't an avalanche. Otherwise, it really will be. Naples. Sunny climate, glittering coastline, stunning cuisine, and underneath it all, a volcano capable of laying waste to half of southern Europe. Italy's third largest city is home to 3 million people, all living right on top of the Campi Flegrei supervolcano. No, not that one. That's Vesuvius, the classic cone-shaped volcano responsible for annihilating the nearby towns of Pompeii and Herculaneum in AD 79. Campi Flegrei supervolcano is over there. Yes, that is a volcano. It's a 7-mile wide cauldron, largely hidden underground, but 1,000 times more explosive than Vesuvius.
One of the problems that you have is the biggest volcanoes, what we call supervolcanoes like Yellowstone, are there only really when you look at them from space. You can see that there are these big holes, or these big calderas, these big collapse structures that are so big they don't look like a normal conical volcano. And it's these that are almost like the hidden giants.
This steaming cauldron is the most visible part of Campi Flegrei. 7 miles from Naples city centre, it may not look like much. But when a supervolcano erupts, it can send up 240 cubic miles of volcanic material. These volcanoes are vast chambers of magma that create seething bulges or collapsed depressions in the earth, rather than your classic cone shape.
The effect of supervolcanic eruption in modern times would be potentially quite catastrophic. If you have a major eruption, say at Campi Flegrei, it would kill millions of people that live in Naples. It would dramatically affect the Mediterranean. It would be a major problem.
The Campi Flegrei supervolcano alert has been raised from green to yellow. And here's why. Scientists have discovered a hot zone of magma extending out from beneath the seabed and under the nearby city of Pozzuoli, which they believe is feeding the supervolcano, causing pressure to build, and the land above to sink and swell in some areas by as much as 4 meters. The last time Campi Flegrei was this active was back in 1538, when it had a case of mild indigestion. But a huge eruption here 40,000 years earlier may have even played a part in wiping out the Neanderthals. But before you start to fret, here's some soothing words from our expert.
It's a very difficult question to answer as to whether we should be worried about them. It's just like whether we should be worried about a comet striking the planet. What could we do about it? Probably nothing.
That is comforting. Thanks. Some catastrophes we can avoid. We think of cities as places where nature has been squeezed out. But think again. Nature always finds a way of fighting back. Poised precariously at the southern tip of Africa, Cape Town, a booming modern city of 4 million people, has been using too much water.
In 2015, the city of Cape Town, individuals were using, on average, about 235 litres per person per day. The world average, by the way, is about 160 litres per person per day.
This was made worse by the fact that by the start of 2018, Cape Town had suffered 3 years of severe drought.
During a typical year in Cape Town, it would receive around about 1,100 millimetres of rainfall. Over the last 3 years, that's been down to 500 millimetres, so less than 50% of what they've seen.
But it's not just a problem of bad short-term weather. Cape Town's climate and geography make drought highly likely.
One of the reasons you can get droughts, particularly on the western side of continents, is because you get cold currents running up, and these suppress the amount of water that gets evaporated into the air and the amounts of clouds. And if you reduce that and you don't have a seasonal rainfall for a particular year or 2 or 3 years, then you're inhibiting the amount of rain. And particularly along some of these areas, you get deserts developing. So north of Cape Town, up into Namibia, you've got some of the world's most spectacular deserts, and they're sat right next to the ocean.
By January 2018, Cape Town's reservoirs had been drained to a critically low level, just 30% of capacity. Local government forecast that the reservoirs could run dry within a few months. So they introduced a countdown to day 0. The day when taps across the city would be completely shut off and water forcibly rationed. To try to keep day 0 at bay, the city introduced a voluntary restriction of 50 litres of water per person per day. People who needed more could queue up at natural springs.
Well, we did queue up to an hour, 2 hours, to waiting for water. You can see the amount of people coming here for the water. Sometimes you stay in about 200-300 people. Well, it is a little bit difficult because before we had to shower every day. Now we have to shower once a week. What can you do?
In May 2018, the rains came, and within weeks, reservoir levels were half full. But the city still needs a solution for its long-term problems. Proposals range from expensive desalination plants and tapping into the subterranean water table to even lassoing icebergs. But maybe those thirsty city dwellers could take a lesson from just outside the city limits. Townships like Khayelitsha make up more than a fifth of Cape Town's population, but use less than a tenth of the water.
If you speak to someone who lives in an informal settlement, they would say, well, day zero hit us many decades ago. They regularly have to go and collect at public taps.
That is the tap for everyone here around here. You have to stand in a queue there. If we know there's no water that day, we know we won't wash. Just wipe up your face and go.
And Iswe supplements what she gets from the public tap with grey water.
Sometimes, as you can see, it rains. So we put buckets on the roof because it leaks. We do reuse the water. We don't just throw them away. It helps a lot because in the previous months we didn't have rain.
And Iswe needs water just like everyone in the city centre. And not just to wash and drink, but for her business.
These are the intestines of a sheep. We call it nchoro here. And after we've cleaned it and take out the poop, we fry them on the fry stand. You must make sure it's properly clean. Because if it's not washed properly, they bring it back and they want their money back. So this problem of water, it really gets to us, really. It does. It's a crisis for all of us. For all of us.
Day zero may have been pushed back for now. But Cape Town's precarious climate means it may not be held off forever. There are places where too little water isn't the problem. In the wettest inhabited place on Earth, just getting across a river is near impossible. But the people here have an ingenious solution. Incredible bridges that live and breathe. In northern India, June to September is monsoon season. During these months, monsoon rains can cause devastating floods.
The Meghalaya state in India just sits to the north of Bangladesh. The air that comes from the monsoon rains is forced to rise up above this large mountain range. It cools the air even further. It causes even more rainfall to fall across this part of India. So during a typical monsoon season, as you go through that rainy period, you can receive above 11,000 millimetres of rainfall.
The only way for people to navigate swollen monsoon-fed rivers is to build bridges. But steel and concrete are expensive, and untreated timber can rot. Meghalaya's tribes have a brilliant solution.
If you don't have the materials at hand, you have to use nature around. They've used the natural environment.
These are Meghalaya's living bridges. A route over the river, made literally from roots.
They've noticed where they've got large trees that have obviously grown for many, many years, withstood many and many a monsoon, stable structures, and they've used those to build their bridges.
Roots are pulled, twisted and tied to planks of wood or bamboo to train them to grow in the right direction.
One thing that's interesting about these tree root bridges is they happen to have exactly the right kind of tree to do this. The trees that grow there, many of them are rubber trees. The actual name is Ficus elastica. And it has a unique property with its roots. It'll drop down strands from its branches that will root to the ground wherever they touch. That means if you can take some of these roots, pull them across a stream, tap them into the soil on the other side, they will happily take root there.
When they're finished, you'd be forgiven for thinking you're in Middle Earth.
In effect, these bridges are living and growing today.
The only trouble is that getting them to grow to this stage can take, about 20 years. This blue hole is called the Divers Cemetery. It's considered to be the deadliest dive site in the world.
We know it's claimed somewhere in the region, I think, 150 divers. When we do go to a site like that, you know, all of us sort of do pay homage to the fact that people have been before us and have lost their lives.
So what makes this blue hole more deadly than any other? The site is located near Dahab, on Egypt's Red Sea coast. Blue holes are ancient undersea sinkholes that can plummet to depths of more than 200 meters. Like most, Dahab's was formed on land before the last ice age. As subterranean limestone deposits are dissolved away by water, it can leave deep sinkholes in the earth. Fast forward a few 100,000 years, and as ice melts and sea levels rise, those holes become submerged, resulting in blue holes. They're an irresistible draw for aquatic explorers.
The problem you have is you've got this wonderful geological architecture underwater, which is spectacular, but very quickly you can go into areas where the light changes, you can get quite disorientated as well. So they can be very difficult places to do diving in. To try and keep a sense of how deep you are and exactly where you are.
These conditions can affect divers physically and mentally. At Dahab, the trouble starts as the 80-meter wide hole tapers on its way down.
It's got like a funnel effect. You're drawn into the end of that funnel, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. You do feel like you're getting sucked into it. You go, oh, it's great, I want to keep going further and further because it seems like it's getting a bit smaller and getting a bit more protective. And you know, you've only got to lose a moment's concentration and you could be an extra 5, even 10 meters deeper than you plan to be.
Dropping too deep too quickly is dangerous. For every meter you descend, air is used up faster, and your buoyancy can drop sharply, sending you into an uncontrolled descent. And as a diver sinks below 30 meters, a condition called nitrogen narcosis can take hold. It's caused by the body absorbing nitrogen from the gas tanks under increased pressure.
It will give you slowed down reactions. It will give you potentially tunneled vision. Basically, it's like the effect of being drunk.
The effects of nitrogen narcosis increase with depth. Experienced divers can learn to manage it, but at Dahab, there is an added temptation that can seduce divers into overreaching themselves.
The arch is at about 56 metres at the first top of it, and then 100 metres plus at the bottom.
The arch forms a 26-metre-long tunnel that leads out into the sea.
To get out to the open ocean, there's a huge draw for divers to explore beyond that.
Some divers can't resist trying to swim through, especially under the influence of nitrogen narcosis.
If they were just on that limit of their dive, and you can see they're all pushing themselves to go that little bit further just to see what is there.
But a trick of the light can make the tunnel seem deceptively shorter, whilst currents can push against you. Disorientated divers can even miss the arch on their way down and sink too deep to find it. Prolonged time at unplanned depths can be a killer. Air can run out fast, and life-giving oxygen can become toxic. Dahab's blue hole is so deadly because its spectacular geology can cause divers to overreach themselves.
You're making bad choices, and unless you recognise them choices early on, they can be fatal.
When your country is 6.6 million square miles, big things in it don't always seem so big. But Russia's Lake Baikal, the world's largest freshwater lake, is an exception. You could fit the whole of Belgium in it, if you wanted. And if you think that's crazy, just wait till winter. Let's just say things get a little freaky. Visible from outer space as a bluish slash across southern Siberia, Baikal is nature's attempt to break every record in the book. At 25 million years old, it's the most ancient of all lakes. Some scientists believe we're witnessing the birth of a new ocean because it's expanding at an astonishing rate of 2 centimetres every year, which is a lot in geological terms. Under this ice is a fifth of the world's fresh water, and it's no ordinary water. Isolated for so long from the rest of the world, over half its inhabitants are found nowhere else. Like the Nerpa, the world's only totally freshwater seal. And the 7-centimetre-long Acanthogammarus victori, 3 times as big as its closest shrimp cousins. Seems unfair to call it a shrimp. They and others live in a marine environment a mile deep. You could stack 2 Burj Khalifas on top of each other, and only the top 35 meters would poke through the ice, which, by the way, is nearly 2 meters thick. It's tough enough to hold the weight of cars carrying supplies to the lake's isolated islands, and also to support Siberia's answer to the Winter Olympics. Not only thick, Baikal's ice is exceptionally clear because of its purity and lack of minerals. And when it does imperfections, it does them in style. What look like white clouds in the ice are actually trapped methane gas bubbles produced by Baikal's algae and caught as the water froze. In fact, Lake Baikal is estimated to contain 424 gigatons of trapped methane, 85 times the amount present in the Earth's atmosphere. If the water level in Baikal were to dramatically fall, the pressure keeping the gas locked away would decrease, potentially resulting in a catastrophic methane eruption. I think I'd rather take my chances with Campi Flegrei. But what on earth is going on here? Well, this moving wave of ice at Baikal's shore is an extremely rare but natural process called ice stacking, where wind sweeping across the vast expanse of Baikal pushes the ice in sheets across the surface of the lake, making them crash into each other at the shore. It's one of the only things around here that does actually make sense. Lake Baikal, the biggest, deepest, and frankly the weirdest, is the world's most extreme.